Hi, I'm Brandon. I love Hallmark movies.
And I'm Dan, and I despise Hallmark movies.
And I'm Emily. I write Hallmark movies.
And this is the Deck the Hallmark podcast.
Deck the Hallmark, it's his podcast.
Brandon and friends host this podcast.
We hope you like this jolly podcast.
Yeah.
Love it.
This is exciting.
It is exciting, Bran. We've, over the last 2 years, we've seen movies written by one Emily Ting, and they're always good. How often does that happen?
Never.
And so we were like, who's this Emily Ting?
Yeah.
And then it turns out she also directs movies as well.
Wow.
And we're like, well, we got to have her on. Sure. And we made her writer somehow. It was a long negotiation, but we made her writer. And now Emily Ting's here with us. Emily, how you doing?
Hi, guys. I just want to say this is like a real pinch me moment.
Stop it.
Because I listen to you guys every morning. You're like my wake up call.
Oh, boy.
Right? It's like,
sorry.
It's a good thing to wake up. You're very energetic.
Sure.
So good thing to wake up to. And my husband could attest to that. Like, oh my God, those guys again.
That's fair.
Well, that's amazing, and we'll get to all that in a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say what's nice is you want to hold hands. What's nice is we've had people on here and we just assume no one listens, and then they will say I listened, or like Tamara, who was like I listened, and Dan, you made me cry, and I'm like, oh no, that's not the intended result. But I know the 3 movies you've written that we've covered, and I don't have to worry about that because I had good things to say about all 3. So this is nice for me too. It's a pinch me moment for me. I'm interviewing someone where I've not disliked something that they were in. So that's nice.
Good. So far, yes.
Yeah. We can.
Give me some time.
Yeah, let's keep the door open. Let's keep the door open for that
possibility. Sure, one of these days Hallmark will assign a, travel to Europe, save a chocolate shop type movie.
Yes. One of these times I'm just we'll do a podcast that only goes to your feed, and it's not the real one, but it's Dan just ripping your movie apart.
You know what?
We don't want you to feel left out. We don't want you to feel left out. That's for sure. Yeah. Emily, let's go back to the beginning of your life.
Wow. Okay. So I was born in Taiwan. And I moved to the country when I was around 10 years old with my mom. And we lived in like Northern California and then moved to upstate New York when I was in high school. And that's sort of like when I kind of discovered my love for film. I started writing film reviews for the school paper.
Oh, nice.
And
do you remember any of your early film reviews from high school? Like
oh my God.
Distinctively bad or good movie you saw in high school?
I think, and this is going to age me, I think my first review was was there a movie called Timeless?
Yeah.
Or something about like a time traveling.
I think, what was the movie with Justin Timberlake about time, where they had the time on the
that was like much later. There was like some old movie in the 90s about some time traveling, and it was like so not my jam. And they assigned me.
Oh.
Like, I remember it was like some sort of time traveling, and that was like the beginning when I was like just assigned these. But then eventually I worked my way up to being like the editor, so I got to choose more like a rom-com-y. Like when I was growing up in the 90s, like I wanted to be the next Nora Ephron.
Of course.
That was my
Of course. What's your favorite like rom-com of the 90s? It's like the best decade for, especially for folks around our age, like the best decade for the rom-com. What's your favorite one?
So When Harry Met Sally
Classic.
is my go-to comfort watch. And I've seen it a million times. And we could talk about this later, but like I'm currently working on something that's kind of an homage to When Harry Met Sally. So that's very much my it's the ultimate. So like to me, Nora Ephron is someone that I aspire to become. So it was during that time that I decided I want to go to film school, and I gotten into NYU Film School, which is a very good film school.
Yeah.
But my mom was like ecstatic. She was very excited for me. My father didn't see it that way. He thought I was like crazy that I wanted to become a filmmaker, because at the time, in the 90s, you didn't have Asian American female directors directing studio films. There were maybe a few on the indie level, but he was just like, that is an impossible dream. It is a crazy path to go down. So, we had a bit of sort of conflict over that, but eventually he came around and he let me go to film school and even paid for it. And he did not do when he didn't support what I wanted to do, but he did. And I was like, oh, great. Dad came around and let me go to film school. But like, as soon as I got out of film school, he kind of came collecting and was like, okay, I let you have your fun. Now let's get serious. Like, you're not really going to be a filmmaker. That's just crazy. So my father has a toy company in Hong Kong. So we have a family business.
A toy company in Hong Kong.
Yes, with a factory in China. So that's how that was my family business. And and that was what helped pay for film school. And yeah, I was like fresh out of NYU film school. I was in my early 20s, and then I kind of got summoned back to go to Asia, to go to Hong Kong and work for the family business.
So, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I don't want to skip ahead, because you clearly had a dream, and then your dad was like, all right, I paid for your dream, and now it's time to face facts. This is reality.
And you got to play with toys.
You got to go work in a toy factory. And
you got to do adult stuff and do toys.
But you are a feature filmmaker. Like, that is not a title bestowed upon you honorarily. You are actually a feature filmmaker. You've written and directed rom-coms for Netflix.
Yeah.
What's your dad, when you made a feature film that was on Netflix around the world, like, what'd your dad say?
I mean, that was a 20-year journey.
Yeah.
So I think now he's very proud, and he's like, oh, my daughter like directs movies for Netflix. But it took so long to get to this point. And that's why I really like telling my story, because I feel like people should, like, right out of school, if you haven't made it when you're 22, 23, don't despair, because someday you could turn 40 and actually do the thing that you went to school for. And that was sort of my journey. Like, I went to Hong Kong and I spent all of my 20s like working in Hong Kong for the toy factory. I had given up. I had I was like, okay, that life that I wanted for myself was never going to happen. And I kind of made peace with it. I was like, this is my life now. I live in Hong Kong. I work for a toy company, and I'm going to take over when my dad retires someday. That was kind of my life laid out for me. But on the eve of my 30th birthday, as I was turning 30, I kind of looked back. I was like, wow, this past 10 years of my life, all of my 20s, I just felt like I was living a life that I didn't choose for myself. And that spark for that filmmaking dream was still there. And yeah, I remember sort of like, as I was turning 30, I was feeling kind of depressed about where my life was, just feeling like it's just not going the direction I wanted for myself. And I remember at the time I went to see a therapist, and she was like, don't worry about what your family wants you to do, but like, if you could do anything in this world, like, what would you want it to be? And I remember then I was like, well, I would want to live in Los Angeles and make movies. But it's such an impossible dream. So why even, like, why? And she's like, why? You're only 29. It's too early for you to just give up. So I kind of like took that to heart and went to my dad, and we worked something out where I'm like, I need the money. I need to keep working for you before I make a career for myself. But I want to move to LA, and I want to give it a go. And I will continue working for you, like, remotely. Most of our customers are in the US. Like, I could visit them more easily. So yeah, like, I moved to LA a week before my 30th birthday, and
amazing.
Started this journey to like really try to make a go at making films. But then from 30 to 40, that was another 10 years of trying, like I actually left Hong Kong when I turned 30, but it took another 10 years for me to actually be able to make this work, for a living. So everything is a huge journey.
Yeah.
Well, what was the break? Like, what was the thing when you were in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Like so many people that go and are starving artists for a long time, or like working remotely or doing bartending or doing whatever they're doing. What was the thing that your first foot in the door? Like, what was it that got you in the door with a movie or a show or whatever?
Right. So when I first moved to LA, I started producing my friends' like micro budget indie films for free as just a way to like relearn the process and the industry and all of that. And I had produced this micro budget film called The Kitchen, which had, for such a small movie, it had a great cast. It had Laura Prepon, Brian Greenberg.
Oh, wow.
Like we put together a really great cast for very little money. And I have to say, like, Brian Greenberg is the reason I have my career today.
Wow.
So at the LA premiere for The Kitchen, I was talking to Brian, and I was only a producer on that movie. He was like, "Oh, what are you working on next?" And at the time, I had written my script for Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong. And I needed, it was written for an Asian American female and a white male. And at the time, Jamie Chung was sort of like the biggest Asian American actress who's doing any sort of studio films and TV shows. And she was kind of like who I wanted for the role, but I didn't have any connections to her. I didn't know her. And then comes the LA premiere of The Kitchen, where I was talking to Brian. He asked what I was working on. I told him about the script and how it features an Asian American female going back to Hong Kong. And he's like, "Oh, that sounds like the perfect project for my girlfriend. Did you know I was dating Jamie Chung?"
Oh my God.
What? So he got the script to Jamie. So I didn't have to go through agents. I didn't have to go through managers. He sent it to Jamie. And when I sent the script to him, I said, "Look, there's, a male role. So if you are interested, maybe you two could do it together." And 2 weeks later, Brian emailed me and was like, "We're in, we're going to do your movie." And that's how it all came together. So that was how Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong came together. That was my first feature film as a writer, director. I self-financed it with the money that I made, in the prior 12, 13 years working for the toy company. And we were able to get that movie off the ground. And that was sort of the movie that got me my manager, my agent, and got me into the festival circuit. So that kind of really put me on the map. And it's all because Brian said yes and got his girlfriend.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I've not seen it. We have people in the chat, the double decker chat's the only way to watch this actually live, BrambleJamPlus.com, saying that that's their favorite indie rom-com.
Wow.
Like literally before you told that story, someone said Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong is one of my favorite indie rom-coms. So like clearly leaving a mark. That movie's 10 years old now.
That's amazing.
Clearly leaving a mark on people, which is amazing. Fantastic. And so cool to get in the door. So like, obviously you've got 3 other feature-length directorial
Can
films.
I ask a quick question? Because it relates to writing that first one.
Yeah.
When you were still working for your dad, 20 to 30,
Yes.
were you still trying to do something creative? Like, were you still writing? Were you doing anything like that? Or did you was it a real 10-year break before going to LA and then beginning to write and do some other creative stuff?
No, I mean, I was always trying to write on the side. I made a documentary during that time, which was basically just a glorified home video of what was happening. So the spark never really went out.
Yeah.
I just was not doing anything professionally. I would write, on the side. Like none of those scripts ever kind of, went anywhere, but it was still my creative outlet. And I tell people today too, I feel like ironically, if I hadn't gone to Hong Kong during that 10-year period, I might not even be a filmmaker. today. Like if I had stayed in New York, I probably would have ended up being like on the corporate side because that's kind of where I was headed. Like maybe I could be a development executive right now, but it took the experiences I had because both RH Tomorrow in Hong Kong and my follow-up film, Go Back to China, they're both about my experiences during that time. And I was able to pay for my first movie with the money that I made at that other career.
Yeah.
So, I'm very grateful. Like looking back, I'm like, I ended up where I was always supposed to end up. I just took a roundabout way and a detour. So, RH Tomorrow in Hong Kong was not the first screenplay I've ever written, but it was the first one that, I got made and produced.
Yeah. And so you self-fund that, you make it, and then where do you go from there? Like, how do you know what to do with a movie once you have a movie?
Yeah, well, I mean, that did the very kind of like usual indie route, which is we did film festivals. We premiered at the LA Film Festival, which is no longer in existence now, unfortunately. But that, I was able to get an agent, was able to get a manager, which seems like, oh, that's it. You did it. You did indie and you got it. But for 2 years, even though I had a manager and an agent, which is already like a step above a lot of people who like don't have any regs, nothing happened for me. Like they would send me out on general meetings, but like it was great. I met a lot of, it's what they call the water bottle tour around Hollywood. But like not much was happening, and I didn't want to become another statistic. Like, okay, one and done. There were, it's like you put all your resources in one. So luckily for me, Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong was a modest hit. Like we actually made our money back and a little bit of profit,
Wow.
which for indie film is really
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
How long did that take to make the money back?
I mean, we're in profit territory now, and we've been out for almost 10 years, but it took like a few years to like get to that. So I kind of doubled down on my career. Like I basically went into the casino, the indie film casino, got my money back and made a little bit, but I decided to go back. And everyone's
we've been there, haven't we?
We've been there at the real casino, and it didn't turn out nearly as much of a
We took our
cool
money out, and then
story.
we said the next night
and then we
let's
went
go
back, and that's what got us. And we were in Reno, where all great films are made.
So I went back, I doubled down, I put the money we made from the first movie, and I made a second film, and that was Go Back to China. And that was because I was like, I need to tell another story, and that was very autobiographical.
I'm reading the description, and it says spoiled rich girl cut off by her father and forced to go back to China and work for the family toy business.
Oh wow.
So, I didn't call you spoiled. I didn't.
I didn't do that.
I didn't. He
And
didn't.
we wouldn't.
He didn't. But that's what that said.
The toy factory stuff, that's all real. The spoiled rich girl has, she needs to have an arc. So
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, she's very annoying the first act, and that's a very exaggerated version of me at 22. But Brian has actually seen the movie. You're Brian.
Brian, you've seen the movie?
Brian Harold is getting a shout out here from Emily Ting.
Yeah, I can't believe he's not here. He actually did the research.
He did the research.
He said I won't be on the same call as Emily. He refused, and so that's tough.
Brian also works in corporate America and just hangs out with us occasionally.
And we give him ideas to write.
That's
So
right.
maybe we'll interview him one day.
Maybe he can write a movie about a spoiled rich girl.
Autobiographical.
So you do those two, and obviously Netflix is going to hire you to do a couple movies that you did not write, which we can talk about a little bit later. But you still haven't done anything for Hallmark writing wise, as by the time Go Back to China is released. So what was the like, I guess, the feedback of the reception of Go Back to China, and then how do we get to Hallmark?
Yes. So Go Back to China got into competition at South by Southwest.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
So that was my level up. The fact that I got into
it's a big
South
deal.
by, because that, after Sundance, South by is really sort of like the biggest film festival. And then I was able to get new representation, new agents out of that, because my old agents didn't really do anything for me for 2 years. I made a new movie, signed with a new agency. And that's really when things started happening. And it was concurrent. So they were sending me out on a lot of meetings, but a lot of pitches. So I just was pitching for about a year on, like I pitched to Disney. Like these are directing for hire jobs. So all of this. And then I got Tall Girl 2 at Netflix just through like going through rounds of pitching. And I, at the time, had only done 2 indie films. And I was really a nobody in the studio movie world. And they gave me a chance. And then concurrently, which has nothing to do with me booking a Netflix job, but around the same time, my manager, so this was Golden Dragon. So this was like before I booked Tall Girl 2, my writing partner and I at the time, just on a whim, we've been writing together for a long time. And every year we sit down in January and we're like, what are we going to write this year? We write 1 spec a year. And we just sat down and we were like, what did you do for Christmas? What? It's like, oh, I ate Chinese food. I ate Chinese food too. And then we just started talking. We're like, how come we've never seen a Christmas movie set in a Chinese restaurant when so many people we know eat Chinese food for Christmas? So we kind of just like wrote it for fun. Yeah. We didn't have any like agenda like, hey, did you know Hallmark puts out 40 Christmas movies? I had no idea. Like we just wrote a Christmas movie that we liked and we enjoyed. So around this time, while I was like pitching on studio movies to direct, my manager was sending the script out. And I guess he went to college with Alex Koskis from Timeless Pictures.
Okay.
They do a lot of these, like Hallmark movies. And Alex now tells me the story, which I didn't know at the time. They were at like a friend's 40th birthday party. And my manager's like, yeah, my client wrote this Christmas movie. I have no idea what to do with it. And he's like, send it to me. And like literally he just sent him the script like on his phone. And Alex read it, loved it, and like Zoomed with me and my writing partner, and they wanted to take it out. And I think they send that script to like a lot of places, not just Hallmark.
Yeah.
But, like the Netflixes, they passed. But in the end, I think it came down to Hallmark and Lifetime. And they were like, they both want the movie. And we're like, Hallmark.
Wow. Bidding war for it. I love it.
Well, I don't know if it was a bidding war.
I'm going to say it's a bidding war.
Yeah, it was a bidding war.
And I don't want to talk about that movie, but like concurrently, like you said, Netflix is hiring you as a director for hire. Before they hire you as a director for hire, the 2 feature films you've directed are written and directed by Emily Ting. And now you're on a project that you've not spent the time writing. Can you just walk me through or just tell me about the difference between writing a movie that's your baby, that you've self-funded, versus Netflix going, here's a paycheck, direct this movie, make it good, you're in charge? Can you just talk me through what the difference is and like the experience?
I can tell you, like my 2 indie films feels like my babies because I did everything. When you are a director for hire on something you didn't write, it feels a little bit like a stepmom, like you're raising someone else's child. And then now I have written things that I don't direct. What all the Hallmark
exactly
movies,
that was going to be my next question. Yeah,
they're a little bit like you give birth and then you give them up for adoption. You have no control on how they turn out. So it's very different. And I have, since my 2 indie films, I have not sort of been able to marry, writing and directing on one project yet, but it is very different. However, I will say, like, all the films I've ever had a hand in, whether I'm the writer only or the director only, they're all my babies in a sense. Maybe I don't love them as much as my first, but I feel a sense of none of them has ever been like, whatever, I'm just a writer for hire or a director for hire. They've all felt very personal and meaningful to me. I'm very proud of all of them. But yeah, there are certain things when you're a director for hire, they ask you for your thoughts on the screenplay, but like it goes through, like when they asked me for script notes on Tall Girl 2, like it went through the producers and then went through Netflix. Like they make notes on my notes. Like they had to pick what notes they agree with to send to the screenwriter. Like you don't get to. It's like you have to say your piece, and then at the end of the day, whether it's Hallmark or Netflix, like they have a brand. They know what they're looking for. Ultimately, you're trying to, deliver on like what fits within their brand. So yeah.
Now with Christmas of the Golden Dragon and your other Hallmark movies, does Hallmark know that you direct?
Yeah, that was my next question.
I feel like they're really missing out
feature
on
film director. Could we get her in there to direct a movie she wrote?
What gives?
Yeah, talk to Hallmark. Okay, so
oh, we can. We'll get that campaign going. We'll talk to Johnny Hallmark.
I think the issue with that is they shoot these up in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not Canadian, and there's a whole tax issue. I should just immigrate to Canada.
There you go.
And I think it's like they have a point system. If a writer took certain of the slot is American, then like the director has to be Canadian, right. I believe. So ironically, I might be able to direct one that I didn't write because if the writer is Canadian.
Yeah, it's a tax thing.
It's a tax credit thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, they hire DGC directors, like Directors Guild of Canada directors, but I'm DGA. So, like I feel like Golden Dragon, Sealed with a List, these were all movies that we wrote for me to direct. But at the time, they were like, look, to get these made, we can't hire you as a director. And I just wanted to get these movies made. And I'm like, fine, I will step aside. It's okay. For the good of the project, to like have him make it on Hallmark, I cannot be the director. And now I'm fine with it. They shoot these things like in 15 days. I'm like, I don't even know if I could deliver. Yeah. Like it's a special type of skill to be able to move that fast. And yeah.
Do you, it sounds like you're at peace with it, but you write these scripts, and if I'm not mistaken, Christmas of the Golden Dragon, Sealed with a List, yours from the beginning, Christmas with the Sings, story by someone else, and then you wrote the screenplay. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Christmas with the Sings was different. That was a for-hire job.
Okay. Got it. So with Christmas of the Golden Dragon and Sealed with a List, when you watch the locked cut,
sure.
Like we know, we've talked to other writers, you don't get to make notes on this cut. You get a locked cut. Is that nerve-wracking to watch? Yeah. Or is that just like, you know what? I did what I could with it, and now it's theirs. They get to do what they want with it.
It was so weird the first time when I watched Golden Dragon, because that was the first thing I've ever written that I didn't get to direct. And also, it was my first Hallmark movie. Like, I hadn't seen a lot of Hallmark movies before that. So I just didn't know what to expect. And that was very nerve-wracking. And with all of these movies, even with Christmas with the Sings, now that, I've done, that was my third one, I have to watch all of these movies twice. Because the first time watching is always like, oh, that's not how I imagined it. Whoa, like it's so distracting. But then the second time is more like I could just sit back and enjoy.
Did you have any idea? You talked about representation, how your dad saw that there weren't any Asian American filmmakers, any of that. Did you have any idea when you wrote Christmas of the Golden Dragon and you were watching that cut, that the idea of a Hallmark movie with a Love Actually level number of plots and with a cast that's almost entirely Asian or Asian American, how rare that was? Did you know that at the time?
For sure. That's why we were very surprised that it went to Hallmark.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, it's like, Christmas so white. It's like every couple you see, it's the same. And I guess we got in at a good time when they were starting to be more inclusive and diverse. And there were like 2 Chinese American Christmas movies that season, Us and the other one, the Big Fat Family Christmas.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, that one not as memorable.
Well, I love the people who made it, so.
Yeah, no, of course. We can say that. You cannot. That's fine.
So for us, and I remember when the poster came out, and they had like Kara like front and center.
It's a great poster.
Like this is like an Asian American female is front and center on a Hallmark Christmas movie. I have that poster framed like in my office. Like I'm in a way like I know I've done like bigger Netflix movies, but to me I was like, we got Golden Dragon on air on Hallmark. Like that to me felt like such an accomplishment because I know they've never done one with a Chinese family before that.
It's huge. So, it's a huge deal. And for it to not just be a Chinese family, but for the risk of the plot structure. I think those two things together, I mean, it's monumental for Hallmark in 2022. So, I mean, fantastic. And it's your first time writing for them. So that's pretty impressive too.
I think we benefited because we were not writing it for Hallmark.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't even realize at the time how revolutionary it is for Hallmark because I hadn't seen a lot. So we were like, Love Actually. But I didn't realize then that they have never really done anything like that.
No.
And then you direct Tall Girl 2. Now, I haven't seen Tall Girl 1 or 2. But I understand the general...
It's Girl Who Is Tall.
She's tall,
yes,
is
correct.
my understanding.
Yes.
But Tall Girl 1 was a big deal for Netflix. I remember seeing the poster everywhere and being like, wow, that girl's tall. Directing your first Netflix movie and it being a sequel of a movie that was a pretty good success for Netflix, was that like double intimidating?
Yes. So I still can't believe I got that job, honestly. Because like, for Netflix teen rom-com, like that was a franchise movie.
Yeah.
Like it spun 2 movies and the first one was a huge success. And Zinga, who directed the first one, like went on to bigger and better things. So she was not available when the second one came around. And I somehow, just through like rounds of pitching, got in. I got on my set. Now, prior to that, I had made Go Back to China, which was a movie made for like $400,000. Tall Girl 2 was a $20 million.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a little different.
I was like, what in the world? Like, how did they just hand me this $20 million movie franchise? And I have never done anything this big before. But obviously, they surrounded me with like really experienced producers and DP. And
you can't keep it if you don't use it. You got to spend. You got to spend all that. You got to spend all that money, right?
Oh yeah, so it was definitely very nerve-wracking. But I think having done Tall Girl 2, when I got on the set of Girl Haunts Boy, it being my second, studio movie of that size, it was definitely a much easier experience. Yeah. But yeah, I was definitely scared out of my mind every single day.
Yeah, was the food good?
Good, crafty?
Oh my God.
It's $20 million. Better
$20 million. Do you get
feeding me like every Friday? Like, what do you want to eat? I had a trailer. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Trailer. Have you been on the set of any of your Hallmark movies while they're filming?
Yes. So I visited the set of Sealed with a List.
Okay.
In 23. And you know what? I have to say, I know like Hallmark was like low budget, but I got on the set. I was like, wow, this looks like a real movie. They had trailers. They had like, it's like a big traveling circus. It's just they shoot it in 15 days.
Right.
But like Tall Girl 2, I have 33 days.
Yeah.
But like, it's the same amount. Like I think.
Yeah, it's the days is where you save all the money.
Days, but like they don't really skimp on the other stuff. Like I think I saw a crane one day. Like they have the production value, but like they have to cover 8 to 10 pages a day. So you don't
crazy.
The actors don't get a lot of takes. It's like you do 2 takes and you move on. That's where it kind of gets really crazy.
Yeah.
But they have very similar amount of toys.
Wow.
Briefly, let's talk about Seal with the List because it's a great movie. It's a really, really great movie. And when you wrote it, I mean, the dialogue in this movie has a pretty zippy quality to it. It has a very back and forth bantery quality to it. And for my money, the best at that on Hallmark is Katie Finley. So you're writing this. I'm assuming you're not writing it for Katie Finley. You're just writing it. When you watch it and you see Katie Finley, is that what you envisioned, or were you like, man, I was really lucky that they got Katie Finley to do this?
Honestly, I think the actors elevated that material, because when I saw Katie and Evan like going back, I was like, whoa, because in Lesser Hands, that banter,
You're right.
right? Like
Yep.
it's all about the delivery. And I think Katie and Evan has such great chemistry in that movie. I think it elevated.
Yeah.
Like it made so many people's top 10 lists that year. And I really think it's everything. And then I thought like Lucy Guest was so great. Like so many people shoot in like Martini Town for New York City, but she like really made it feel New York. Like I was very impressed. Again, you're not supposed to choose your babies, but I feel like out of all my Hallmark movies, I Seal with the List was the one that I was the happiest with in terms of how it turned out. I remember after I saw it, I called Alex. I was like, this feels like a Christmas movie if Emily Ting had directed it. Like it felt very much like my sensibility. So now I'm always like, go to Lucy first. You know, if she's scripts, I think she did a amazing job with that one.
It's a great movie.
Was this one after the Hallmark saw Christmas at the Golden Dragon? Did they call you for this one, or was it the same basic thing? You guys take it and Hallmark's like, we like it.
So Sealed with the List was a movie that we've written. It was the first script that my writing partner and I wrote. So we've had that script for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
It was like as soon as like one of the earliest things we wrote when I moved to LA. And that movie went through so many iterations. At one point, like, we were going to attach Aubrey Plaza as the lead.
That checks. Yeah.
Point, it became a Chinese company in China optioned it and wanted to make it, and that never got made. So it just like got so close to getting made and then like never happened. And it just sat in our drawer or sat on our computer. And then when Golden Dragon was a success, Alex came to us, was like, do you guys have anything else? We're like, well, we have this New Year's resolutions one that takes place in December. We didn't write it like a holiday movie, but it could be a holiday movie. So he took it, showed it to Hallmark. 3 weeks later, they have not worked as fast since. But like,
I was about to say, nice to know that they can do things in 3 weeks.
That's
news
crazy.
to us.
Between the time we sent it to Alex, and then him calling us saying Hallmark wants to buy it, it was only 3 weeks. We were like, whoa.
Unbelievable.
But that happened very fast. Yeah.
So we have dear friends of the show, Nina Wyman Swift, Julie Sherman Wolf, who are writers for hire, that they do have some of their own scripts, but by and large, Hallmark buys scripts and then they get a treatment from someone that knows the Hallmark brand. Christmas with the Sings, it appears that you have become a trusted name in the Hallmark writer sphere because that is what happened with Christmas with the Sings, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So Patricia has sold, I guess, the movie to Hallmark in 2022. So it was like, a 2-year process. She wrote the treatment. I think she wrote the first 2 or 3 drafts. I was brought on, I think, in like May or June of 2024.
Oh, wow.
Pretty late in the game. And I'm like, oh, you guys are shooting. And they were like shooting in July or something.
Oh, my gosh.
They wanted to shoot, but I think they didn't end up shooting until like September. But when I was brought on, they were like, yeah, we want to shoot this summer, but we need help. We need someone to like Hallmarkify it. And at the time, I've only ever done original scripts that we wrote as spec. Like we've never been rewriters like for hire. So, I was very flattered, but I was also very scared. I was like, oh, I've never written someone else's work before, so I'm not sure. But let me take a look at the script and see. And I really resonated with the story. Like, I think if this was another just typical, girl goes to Belgium and saves
Chocolate Shop. Chocolate shops are catching strays this episode, and I'm here for it.
They will assign me a chocolate shop after this, just to punish me.
Emily Ting's Untitled Chocolate Shop movie. Yes, of course.
But I really resonate because, I have a very tough Asian father. I'm in an interracial marriage. Like there were so many things that I loved about it. And I was a little bit concerned that obviously I'm not Indian. Like I don't want to step on any cultural things. But also, let's be honest, they don't have a lot of Asian writers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hallmark. It probably was like, who is the closest?
Close enough. Close enough.
No, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. But like, there was a part of me that was like, why didn't they just find another Indian writer? But
maybe that wasn't possible. Yeah.
And
They've only been at it for 2 years, Emily. Their stables can only get so big in a couple years.
I would hate to think that someone at Hallmark was like China, India, same thing, but I also think that might have happened to someone somewhere, and that stings.
Well, look, I'm grateful because they were not entirely off the mark because I was like, yes, I have a white husband. Like like I could do this. Like I resonated. I love the father-daughter relationship. So I was like, yes, let me take a stab at it. So that was sort of like, yes, she wrote the original script, but having now myself done a few Hallmark scripts, there's certain beats you need to hit. The number one note is always more Christmas.
What?
So, it's like a lot of the things that I'm kind of used to. And this was Patricia's first script for Hallmark. So they kind of just needed someone to like certain conflicts need to happen by certain acts, commercial breaks. So I went in and I did that and like punched up all the dialogue. And I also like inserted a lot of personal things just like between my father and me, the whole, different career path thing. That was inserted based on my own experience. So yeah, like even though that was not a project I originated, I'm very proud of that film and really grateful that I got to be a part of it.
How'd you think Manoj Sood did?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I loved him. Yeah, and I know you guys really loved him too. And it's funny because like as you saw, there were other Mean Parents movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
All over this last season. And we came out and it's all due to his performance because he could have taken it.
The tone is so important.
Yes, an extreme way, and then people would have hated him. Like Barbara is a great actress, but also that character, which is harder to come around to. So
That's right.
it's a fine balance between what's on the page and how the actors, deliver it.
That's right. And I guess it's The Girl Haunts Boy, your other Netflix movie. I imagine that came out of Tall Girl 2 and them seeing that and being like, you got what it takes. Let's do another.
So sort of, but that movie also had its own backstory. That movie was not commissioned by Netflix originally. It was commissioned by HBO Max.
Oh.
Okay.
So HBO Max did call me in for a general meeting because of Tall Girl 2.
Okay.
Because they were building their own live action teen rom-com slate. And they were like, she just did Tall Girl 2 for Netflix. Let's have her come in. And they gave me the script. And at the time, they were like, look, we have the script. We think you'd be perfect for it. But we're like going into hard prep in 2 weeks. Like we are supposed to choose our director like yesterday. So, but we love you and we want you to like pitch on it. If you want to, this was like Friday. They're like, you have Monday. We're like a week.
Oh my God.
And I usually take like minimum a week, preferably 2, to like craft a vision for a movie. And you got to do a pitch deck and all of that. So I really wanted to work with HBO Max because who doesn't want to have HBO on their resume? So I just worked throughout the weekend. I did my pitch and they gave me an offer like that afternoon. They're like, wow. You got to fly to Jersey in 2 weeks. So that whole thing happened super fast. Great experience. But then when I was in post, David Zaslav over.
Yeah.
And they kind of killed their entire 2022.
Wow.
You got what was it? Batgirl?
Batgirl
Guy? You almost got
Batgirled.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
We did. And I was like, what? Like I left my family for 3 months. I went to Jersey. Like, it was a huge, we all got paid. Like we finished the movie, but still like.
You want to see this thing.
Yeah. This was a very lovely movie. So it kind of just died. And I'm like, okay, well, welcome to Hollywood. But then like earlier this year, early 2024, like January 2024, so earlier last year, my producer called, was like, we got the rights back and Netflix is gonna put it out. I'm like, what? Like, I
Nice.
assumed it was dead because HBO Max wrote it off their taxes. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
done. But because this was not as high profile as Batgirl, it was, much lower budget. They were like, just give it back to the producers. Let's not delete this one from the server. Like, somehow we were
Wow.
stable.
Man, you got a break there.
Yeah, and Netflix bought it, and now it's a Netflix.
Incredible.
Wow. What?
Yeah, we've
what
been trying to buy Batgirl for a while.
We've been trying to
and
buy
so
Batgirl for a
we'll see.
while,
Oh,
saving
really?
up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that and the Looney Tunes one
Yeah.
that I want to see. Emily, what news can we break about what you're working on right now
Yeah.
that you want to announce to everyone?
Well, I am working on a new movie for Hallmark for 2025.
Love to
Knock
hear
on
it.
wood, if all goes well. I don't know if I'm supposed to say much about it, but the title is on IMDb. It's called Merry Friendsmas.
Merry Friendsmas. Okay.
So that's by When Harry Met Sally homage.
Ooh.
awesome.
Stop selling. That's what I'm talking about. Brand, do we have time for a little rapid
I think we
fire?
got rapid fire. We got
I
time
love
for
it.
rapid fire. We're just going to ask you 3 questions as quick as we can, and you can answer as quick as you want. They can be about anything. Anything at all.
That's
Dan?
right. Emily, the best Chinese food in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I should be better at this. Hold on. We're about to go out for Chinese food for Lunar New Year.
Yeah, tomorrow. So,
Yes. So actually I'm gonna plug a restaurant that I haven't even been to yet, but it's supposed to be a really, really good restaurant. It's called Array 36.
Array
My
36.
friend has been, loved it. So we just booked a big banquet table. So we're gonna have our Chinese New Year celebration there. It's supposed to be like the hot new Chinese restaurant. So
Hot new trendy Chinese restaurant. I love it.
If you played professional sports, what number jersey would you wear?
what? 88.
Good
88.
answer.
I like
That's
it.
a lucky number.
You can only write or direct the rest of your life. Which is
Oh.
it?
This might sound surprising, but right.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
It's just a much easier schedule on my family.
All
Fair.
right.
That
I
I-
love that. Yeah.
That's fair. Where is somewhere in the world that you haven't been that you want to go?
Ooh, I've really wanted to go to Croatia.
Oh,
I mention it because we were just talking about it for our family trip this summer. And I was like, I've never been to Croatia. I really want to go. So that's like in contention.
there you go.
If you could write or direct a movie that wasn't a rom-com, or you were, what genre would it be, or what director would that be modeled after?
Well, that's a good question. I have always wanted to try like a psychological thriller, not
Ooh.
horror, psychological thriller, just because it's so outside of my comfort zone.
I like
Uh,
it.
I think that could be interesting in terms of director.
That's
I
like
have
a-
to think about it.
That's a David Fincher movie, is what that is.
Oh
Right?
my God. Okay.
Right? Like, Dave,
Yeah,
that's when you said it.
Yeah.
That's-
Movie, right? Who wouldn't want to watch that?
Yeah.
Fair.
I love
Last one. If you could be a contestant on any reality competition show, which show would it be? How do you think you would do?
Well, if this is an alternate universe, maybe the Golden Bachelorette.
Oh,
I'm old for the regular.
it.
I don't believe that.
No way.
I don't believe
No
that for a
way.
second.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
don't watch those competition shows, but I do watch those dating shows.
there you go.
Fair.
There you go.
Emily, we end every episode with a charity shout out. Our guest brings a charity.
shout out.
Is that a new thing we're
That's a
trying?
new thing.
Our guest brings a charity. They talk a little bit about them. Then we donate some money and tell everybody else to do the same. Emily, what charity did you bring to us today?
Yeah, so as you know, LA just went through this very devastating fire. Luckily, my home and my family are safe, which we're very grateful for, but a lot of other people were not as lucky, including a lot of personal friends and people we know. So today I just want to highlight the Wildfire Recovery Fund by the California Community Foundation, and they kind of funnel donations to all the organizations in need in the LA fires.
Love it. A
Fantastic.
great cause. Absolutely on the forefront of a lot of our minds. And we will be donating and would ask all of our listeners to do the same. Emily, you have been an absolute delight. This has been wonderful.
It's been so fun. Thank you guys so much.
You got it. We can't wait to see what you got coming up next. We're very excited about it, and we'll talk to you soon. Until then, maybe we're the first to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Deck the Hallmarks of Bramble Jam podcast is produced by Aaron Shea. For more information on Deck the Hallmark, you can go to deckthehallmark.com. For more information on the Deck the Hallmark family, you can go to bramblejamplus.com. Deck the Hallmark is presented by Philo TV. For a free trial of Philo, go to philo.tv/DTH.